Bella, where the hell you been, loca? Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Hacker Slash. If you're joining us again, welcome back. Your suffering is now over. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the party. We are a horror movie review podcast dedicated to telling you whether a movie is a hack,
a total joke, a waste of time,
or a slash.
Totally killer, pun intended.
We believe horror is for everyone, and as such, we're rating these movies with the perspective we've gained from our varying walks of life and the flavors of fear we fancy most. My name is Chris, I'm your friendly neighborhood slasher enthusiast, and this week I'm joined by the classic horror connoisseur, Sean.
What big eyes you have, Grandma.
This week we're exploring our fourth classic, Universal Monster, as we prepare to see its 2025 reboot in theaters next week.
Oh yeah, super excited. And if you're a patron, you'll also get to hear our B-side at the end of this episode where we get into all kinds of werewolf lore.
Now, nearly a decade after introducing Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy, Universal Pictures expanded its monstrous legacy with a tale of folklore, curses, and a tragic transformation. The film explores the werewolf legend with a story rooted in curses, folklore, and the inevitability of fate as an aristocrat named Larry Talbot returns to his family estate. But he crosses paths with a captivating woman, a mysterious carnival, and an ancient curse that changes his life forever. The film became a cornerstone of the Universal Monsters legacy as it wielded groundbreaking makeup effects that set the standard for monster transformations, and a performance by Lon Chaney Jr. that cemented him in horror history. This week, we're talking about The Wolfman. Sean, had you seen this one before? It feels silly to ask.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Obviously, you've seen this before.
Obviously.
You were the fucking Wolfman for Halloween.
I was the Wolfman for Halloween some moons ago, and I feel like, look, we all know I'm a huge fan of the classics and especially the Universal monster movies. So, yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen this one more times than I can count, along with its sequels. And actually, I think I was just watching this really just this past Halloween. I feel like it was just on during the day, and I just happened to have, I think it was Turner Classic Movies on, and it was on, and I was watching it, and it was a good time.
See, I've seen this one, but I've never seen any other variation of Wolfman.
Really?
I've never seen the sequels. I've never seen the remake. None of it. I've only seen this original version. Damn. Yeah. I saw it a bunch when I was younger. And then, Sean, you inspired me to just go ahead and make a great purchase, the entire collection. So now I own a digital 4K copy of this.
Awesome.
Which feels fantastic. I had it up on my TV after I started getting settled into my new apartment. And it was such a perfect, cozy way to spend the day. And really going into it again, I was curious to see how it would feel because I purchased it a couple years ago now at this point, but I actually hadn't watched it in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really hard to have any expectations going into this movie anymore because I just feel like, I'm always just looking forward to watching a good old monster flick. And I don't know about any of you, but I really love all the lore in this movie. You've got the story of the werewolf, and that story, it's always been one that I feel like intrigued me. The writer for this film did a lot of research into the old folklore and whatnot surrounding werewolves before writing this screenplay, and I love how that added to the feel of this movie.
100%. And Sean, you mentioned earlier, it was on Turner Classic Movies. This movie is classic. It feels classic. It is exactly the kind of movie in the era of film that I want to put on the TV when it's raining out, I'm curled up with a blanket, maybe got a nice little warm drink, and I just want to feel like a cozy, cozy bitch.
Yeah.
Because this movie has the warmth of nostalgia. Never mind the Wolfman of it all. This is just stellar cinematography. It's stellar set design. It is just wholesome, even though it's a pretty brutal movie.
Yeah, it is very brutal and it is very violent for sure. And it is something that I'm sure could have been a little bit risque for its time. I'm not a film historian or anything like that, but I do think that, when you watch some of the stuff in here, you might be surprised at how aggressive it may be depicted, even though you don't get to see everything visually. But also, yes, like all the feelings that you get while watching this movie it's because it's so atmospheric, right? Like, I think it's just everything is so beautiful. And it's interesting because we also just watched and reviewed Nosferatu, right? 2024. And I feel like that movie for this time right now felt like a beautiful film. Like the way everything looked and sounded and fell into place. It felt very timeless, very classic, and really beautiful to watch. And it feels a little bit like watching this movie, if I'm being honest, right? Like the shots that you get in this movie are really, really beautiful to look at, especially when you're thinking of, the 40s or whatnot. And there's also another thing that I really loved, and it's not giving anything away, but there's an opening shot of an encyclopedia book being opened and how it highlighted a couple of words on the page that was shown. And one of those being the word legend was highlighted. And I feel like that almost put this emphasis on this story being almost like a myth or a legend or a fairy tale or something. And I thought it was a really cool touch, and it sets this interesting tone for the film.
100%. And listen, before this, we've gotten The Mummy, we've gotten Frankenstein, we've gotten Dracula in terms of what we've reviewed on the show. And obviously, Dracula is its own bit. It's a tale that's now obviously so well known. It's much beloved. Frankenstein, very recognizable as well. But then even when we look at The Mummy, and you think of the lore of The Mummy, it's clear, but this somehow feels even easier to follow. This feels like a great put this in the theater, get the audience going. And that's what I think makes it such a classic film and so timeless, because even now, the story is very well paced.
It's really, really true. The story is well paced. I think the lore is just really intriguing. It's not too much, but it gives you just enough, right? Like it really brings you into this tale. It gives you enough of the story to follow along, but it doesn't get overly complicated. And I really think that's really great. I also think you might be surprised to find that this movie is supposed to take place in Wales, because in the script, Talbot Castle is in Wales, but somewhere along the way, someone must have just, made the decision to leave that entire part out of the film, because at times the dialogue in this movie suggests something that you might feel is different, right? Like I think there's moments where you might feel based on dialogue that this story might take place in somewhere like Germany. Mm-hmm. I think, there's even some dialogue where Lon Chaney himself as Larry Talbot says, back in California, like they're in the fucking United States or some shit. So maybe they meant Wales, Wisconsin.
Listen, your boy was gone for 18 years. He could have sailed a lot of seas.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting, though, that some of the dialogue kind of hints like it wouldn't be in Wales, but it is theoretically supposed to take place in Wales. And I think what's also really surprising is that the original title for this movie was supposed to be Destiny, which sounds really admittedly terrible for a title for this movie. So thankfully they changed that to the Wolfman before it released.
I see the vision.
Yeah.
I get what they're going for. But Destiny is almost like something that you name a property after it's proven itself to be historic and iconic.
Yeah.
You're really fucking rolling the dice hard on Destiny. That's crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Wolfman, much simpler, much catchier.
Much catchier. Destiny, so strange. Very, very strange.
Let me tell you, though, Sean, I was surprised by a couple things. One, the real theme for us this month not only is like all these classics that we're watching, I bet you're just eating this shit right up, it's pentagrams. Because we had naked man butt from The Ritual and with Knock and Nosferatu in the 2024 remake. And now we have this guy fucking buying a cane to impress a girl. Got a pentagram on it. Lots of pentagrams all over the movie.
Yep.
Lots of pentagrams that look like a child drew a star.
Very true. We have a lot of pentagrams in this film, and that is like one of the thoughts that comes through my head every time I see it, because they mention pentagram, and then when they show what's supposed to be the pentagram, I'm like, it's looking more like a star.
It's missing a few parts.
Yeah.
I get it. A pentagram. All the lines connected makes a star.
Right.
But come on, guys.
And that's not the pentagram that I'm familiar with.
No, not at all. Not for Sean's satanic rituals.
Yeah, come on. I'm very well versed in all things the occult. No. But, I think when you've watched enough horror movies, got into enough horror lore and writing and heavy metal and all these bands that kind of like do all this crazy shit, right? Like, I feel like you see enough pentagrams over the course of your lifetime that, this one, not too familiar with.
Here's the other thing, though. Beyond that surprise, I was really disappointed in something in this movie.
Really?
Which is hard to say because I really love this movie. But fuck Larry. Have I been blind the entire time I've watched this movie? It's so hard to put, but I wanted him to expire. Like, he's our main character, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about you. In fact, you're doing a lot of things that I find creepy and fucking pushy and annoying. And like, when you get into the werewolf of it all, fantastic. But I have never experienced this visceral reaction to his character, and I don't know why it's jumping out at me now.
I mean, I can see it for sure. Like, there is this element, which we'll get into, I think, when we break it down a little bit more in the spoiler zone. But there is this element of being a little bit overbearing, a little bit forceful, a little bit pushy, with some females and things like that.
This really is the 1941 Jacob Black.
I see where you're coming from. I do. The wolf likes to stalk its prey, I guess, was the message in this film.
Yeah, listen, wolves aren't that horny, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I guess not as horny as vampires.
Vampires are very horny, especially Nosferatu. Oh my God. We're not going to be able to escape it this year. But here's the thing. I guess the whole bit about creature features, and when you have man turning into a creature in particular, it's supposed to be this whole parallel, this through line of man succumbing to an animalistic nature. But also, you're still a dude. Like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? Come on. It's just not something that I've ever, like, really taken as, like, okay, this is going to be a side tangent here, but even looking at movies like Send Me No Flowers and Bringing Up Baby, like, we have the super heteronormative, like, dynamic with, our leading man and our leading ladies in this era of film. 99% of the time, it's like, oh yeah, that's so wholesome and cute and all this and that. But you look and read between the lines, you're like, yeah, this was definitely made when the fucking Hays Code existed, and the fucking like patriarchy of it all, it just oozes it.
Yeah.
Listen, that is how it was. It's the time that it's made. This feels like more of it, though. This stands out more for me in this movie more than other movies I've seen.
Yeah.
And it's this one fucking, it's just the one fucking guy.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, there is a sense of that with Dracula too, though. You know what I mean? Like, there is that forcefulness with Dracula too, but I think the difference is maybe it's just accepted differently because there's this connection, this life, eternal longing for this, lover, whereas this is just like, oh, I happen to just stumble upon this person that I'm infatuated, and now I'm just going to go take what I want.
It's the take what I want. It's the dog lifting its leg to piss on something and mark its territory. Is it thematically appropriate? Sure.
Although it wasn't like the easiest road, like the dude did get turned down at one point. He became almost a last resort at one point.
The dude kept getting turned down.
Yeah. So,
the dude never got turned up.
He got turned up, but I don't know, it's tough to say.
I'm just saying, listen and respect boundaries.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying. And I think it goes right back down to this movie in the 1940s. It was true then, it's true now.
It's true. The other thing that I think is really interesting with this movie, and I guess, lump in all the movies that it kind of ties into, but it's always really surprising how much stuff that they reuse across multiple films back in this era, right? You can really start to notice as you watch a lot of these films that, from soundtracks to background scenery and stage props, like a lot of stuff is kind of reused in multiple movies, and especially with these horror movies and things. I think it's pretty wild.
Yeah, like the backgrounds, the ones that spin so that all you have to do is sit in a car that's moving vertically and it creates the illusion of driving. That shit, I'm sure, was reused.
Yeah, just crazy to think about like how many things do get reused. I think that's wild. But I will say, aside from all of that, aside from the horniness of werewolves and vampires and all that stuff, I definitely don't see anyone, at least in this generation, getting scared in a movie like this now. I think you can really appreciate the look of it, right? I think there's some really cool monster effects even now watching it. I don't think you're going to be really scared. Maybe back in 1941 with scenes and their atmospheric setting, right? The cool transformation scenes we get and the fact that we get a dude turning into this violent Wolfman creature and killing people is probably fairly new at the time, and I'm pretty sure shocking.
Yeah. That was something that, especially I think the brutality of some of these kills, I get it. And again, I say brutality. It's 1941 brutality. This is no Terrifier 3, okay? It's the idea. It's the premise of it. However, this movie, although not scary at all, not terrifying at all, nor would anyone in modern day find it that way, what's incredible is that it does build that atmosphere that you mentioned earlier, Sean. It builds that tension, and it creates a sense of dread. Even though it's not as palpable for us in 2025, it's still clear that it was present. And you know it's present because a lot of this inspires movies to this day and other media to this day. And I'm thinking about, and especially, oh my gosh, The Woods. I could not stop thinking about the game, The Quarry. Have you gotten to play it?
No.
Listen, if you like to make decisions in a game and then have like a spidering effect of one decision here affects you like 3 scenes later.
Okay.
That game is absolutely fucking incredible. And it feels very Wolfman.
Interesting. Okay.
At least to me in retrospect. I finished it and then I'm replaying it now with Allie. Fucking love that game.
Sounds fun.
Listen, for this being, I think, the second crack at a werewolf movie, I think it gets some credit there.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
It's a pioneer.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I feel like, to your point, it's not the first werewolf movie to be made, right? We actually, I think even 1913, there's a short film called The Werewolf, but I think it's lost. Like, it's like one of those films that is so old and nobody, like, it's just gone. Like, I don't know if there's a copy somewhere floating around, but it has been documented, but it's just not available. So it's there because somebody wrote it and said, yep, we definitely had this short film called The Werewolf in 1913, but nobody now has seen it, and it's not a thing you can find.
Yeah, you saying that really just threw me back to Young Frankenstein. Werewolf, their wolf, their castle.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, that aside, of course, to what you're talking about, we have Werewolf of London in 1935, which is actually Universal's, to your point, first crack at a werewolf movie, which a lot of people may not know about. I think that is really interesting. It was commercially less successful than this movie was, but what this movie does have going for it is that it established some important characteristics that, to your point, went on to define future werewolf movies. Like, that's where the credit has to be respected, right? You just have to give it some kind of recognition for the influence that it had. I think things like the idea of silver being able to kill a werewolf, or the idea that werewolves are repulsed by wolfsbane, right? Those two things right there, this movie is responsible for. And I think it's the lore, and more importantly, the lore building, and everything's just got to start somewhere. So
for sure, there is so much to respect here. And I think what I respect most of all is the way this movie chooses to end. Because damn, it's one of those that almost in the way that Dracula felt, it can feel very sudden. It's like we've been building up for something, and then the climax or the third act feels very abbreviated.
Yeah.
But on paper, when you look at like the outcome of this movie, damn, that's a lot of nerve. And you can see how, again, not scary to a 2025 audience, but this must have been horrific. Even if not scary, it must have been a gut punch for people in 1941.
I'm sure it was, really, honestly. I do think, to your point, right, like, we get a lot of these classic horror films and the endings kind of feel almost the same way, in the sense of like how you're left feeling. Like, it almost feels sudden or abrupt the way the movie ends. You feel like maybe you just weren't ready for it to end in that way, or you weren't ready for it to end yet. And I think, if you had to critique anything, I enjoy the ending, but maybe where we differ is I think that's maybe one of the only areas where the film suffers a bit, because I just feel like if we could just, extend the movie maybe 10 minutes, you know what I mean? And really kind of draw out the ending a little bit would be fantastic. But overall, I feel like it aligns with the typical tragic themes we often see in these classic horror films. So what do you expect?
You know what? I would say, Sean, give me no additional runtime, but remove 10 minutes of this man fawning over a woman that he was stalking and give you more of him as like a werewolf, then absolutely, yeah, I'd agree with that. Let's use the time better.
If we could get more of the werewolf, for sure, we need more of that at the end. Save it all for the end and just give it to us. And I think that would be great, but it is what it is.
Well, despite that blemish, I can't wait to see how our ratings shake out. Now, before we actually score this film, Sean, how would you describe the gore score?
Yeah, well, much like most of these older horror films, we don't really see any blood. So, I mean, especially anything predating the 50s and the 60s, before the standard began to loosen a little bit, and we got movies like Psycho with the chocolate syrup fake blood in the shower scene and all that. So, needless to say, this one is getting really like a NE for non-existent in terms of gore.
What about the Animal Report?
This is an interesting one because I would like to think that PETA would be here for even the werewolves because they are part animal, and I think you got to protect them. So there is some harm on the werewolf, and, even though they don't show it, we do have a dog in this movie, and so beware that if you have a really good imagination and can really imagine in your head what's happening in some of these scenes, it might not be the best for you.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our ratings then. The Wolfman from 1941. Was it a hack or a slash?
These early horror films really helped to shape the landscape of horror, both, I think, for the time and for the future to come. And I think The Wolfman 1941 is absolutely no exception. I think from the moment the fog rolls across the screen to the absolutely perfect and haunting set design, immersing you in a very rich atmosphere for its time. I think it all helps to put you in this world that's eerily haunting. It's foreboding. I think the gothic landscapes, the moors shrouded in mist, the shadowy forest, all the way to the village streets that you get in this little town. And it all just helps to perfectly capture a memorable environment for this really, truly a tragic tale. And even though Werewolf of London, 1935, which we talked about earlier, holds the distinction of being Universal's first shot at a werewolf movie, I feel like it lacked the cultural impact that this movie was able to achieve. And because, this movie didn't just tell a story about a werewolf, right? Like, it helped redefine the legend of the werewolf and really brought it out of European folklore and into American pop culture. And I think this is one of the most atmospheric monster movies of its time. It's thick with dread. I think there is a touch of romantic tragedy in there as well. And I think that's what audiences really love to see in some of these movies. And I think this is a quintessential experience for any horror fan out there. I think it's a must see. I think it has landed itself in history. You have to watch it. And it isn't just a slice of cinematic history. It's a fucking slash because it delivers a howling good time.
Sean, you mentioned Werewolf of London. In reality, it's not about who did it first. It's about who did it best. And while there have been an incredible amount of werewolf content and media that have come after this movie put this shit on the map in a really big way. And that's significant. You can't deny it. This movie still holds up today in that it is palatable. It's fun. It's fun for the whole family. It's one of those that you can put on and feel even the atmosphere of Halloween, although this is not expressly a Halloween film. This just feels like wholesome horror energy. And it's exactly the kind of movie that can really help fill your cup. Now, when we think about the branches from this franchise, I know things get messy later on the way. That's why I haven't watched any of them. And yeah, it has a main character who I cannot fucking stand. But this movie is incredible in spite of that. This movie is incredible for what it does with its practical effects. This standard setting practical effects, by the way, and the makeup transformation. The Wolfman walked so that American Werewolf in London could run and look excruciatingly painful. when you think about the line that is drawn in monster transformations and the incredible effects work we've seen in modern day, this is such an incredible early representation of that. So this cannot be anything but a slash. And with that, the Wolfman from 1941 has earned a universal slash. Now, we have a lot to discuss when we get back from our break. But if you've seen this before, please let us know what you would rate it. We can find the links to that conversation in our Discord server over in our show notes. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can follow the link in our show notes to see where you can find this movie right now. When we return from our break, we'll dive deep into the spoiler zone territory, learn more about the practical effects, and unpack that werewolf lore. We'll see you in a bit.
Welcome to the Antique Road Curse, Gypsy Edition. Proudly sponsoring this episode of Hacker Slash. The Antique Road Curse is the only traveling appraisal show where the treasures are priceless and the curses are unavoidable. Run by the finest Romani experts in the art of the arcane, Antique Road Curse specializes in uncovering the dark histories of your family heirlooms. Is your silver wolf's head cane just a walking aid, or does it carry the weight of a century-old curse? Is that shimmering medallion from Grandma a timeless keepsake, or a one-way ticket to a full moon fright night? We're here to give you answers, along with a free charm to ward off evil. Our roaming caravan of appraisers brings centuries of wisdom, folklore, and an uncanny knack for spotting objects with a bite. With each appraisal, we'll reveal your item's true origin, its monetary value, and the exact curse that might have your ancestors howling at the moon. So bring us your most mysterious relics. We want to see those tarnished lockets, those bouquets of dried wolfsbane, or that creepy mirror that seems to reflect more than it should. And remember, at Antique Road Curse, the curse isn't extra, it's part of the package. Antique Road Curse, where the value is real, the stories are legendary, and the curses are just the beginning. So come for the history, but stay for the horror. And don't forget to pack your wolfsbane, just in case.
Welcome back, folks. You're now entering the spoiler zone for The Wolfman from 1941, which has earned a universal slash. Now, we have lots to unpack here, but before we get into the specifics of our ratings, let's go through those kills.
Well, we don't really get the highest of kill counts in this one, which is okay. We do get 4 deaths in the entire film, and, I'll take those 4. And it's not that they're even that crazy, right? I mean, I guess we could imagine what they might have been like had we actually seen the gruesome acts that were unfolding, but nonetheless, we got 4, and we're here to talk about them, so let's talk about them. Which one of these kills, Chris, had you crawling for more?
Larry Talbot.
Larry Talbot, yeah, okay, so I kind of figured that was coming.
Fuck him. But also just the irony of his own father killing him, striking him down with his cane.
I know, that's the one.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Granted, I feel bad. Also, he's a cute little wolfman at that point. We don't want to see him get beat.
Yeah.
But fuck Larry. Is it even the best kill in the movie? Probably not. I mean, there's the drama of Bella's death. There's the drama of Jenny's death and the gravedigger. But man, it was just satisfying to see him go.
Yeah, I mean, it is just the impact of getting, beaten and bludgeoned by your own father with your own cane, that worked against you. But, the biggest mistake was giving away his silver charm necklace, and he did it to protect. But had he kept it, might have been okay for him.
He did it to impress.
He did it for the nookie.
All for the nookie.
Always. But yeah, so that kill definitely, mostly we're getting a lot of the same types of kills. We're just not really seeing it. So what happened to Gravedigger Richardson, whatever happened to Jenny Williams, essentially we know they got mauled by, respectively, Bella the werewolf. Jenny Williams died by Bella the werewolf.
Bella, where the hell you been, Loca?
Wow. Now it makes me wonder, were these like little subtle callbacks to this film? That would have been great. But thinking of like being mauled by whether it's the werewolf, Bella the werewolf, whether it's Larry the Wolfman, and having your jugular severed, to have your neck ripped out in that way. Imagine if we did get to see those kills, because you got to imagine both of those kills would be pretty gnarly.
Well, think about An American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, that shit was brutal as fuck. When you see werewolf jaws on a person's body, holy shit. Granted, the size of this man's jaw, not as intense, but sharp, but pointy.
Very true. But I think, to me, what I would think, outside of Larry's death, Bella's death in this movie is interesting, because I think that would have a really high impact for the audience, especially at that time, because to me it was the heavy emphasis of Larry really beating down with that cane. And even though in 1941 we're not going to see it, right? They're not going to show us this head or this body being bludgeoned to death with this silver cane on screen. We're not going to see the gore and the blood, but the fact that we got to see how many times Larry was swinging this down with some pretty good force, you know what I mean? You just have to imagine. And at that time, even myself, I'm watching this and I'm like, wow, it's pretty intense, man. You're really going at it.
That's what it comes down to when I was talking about that brutality, not because we see it, but because you can feel the spirit of it.
Yeah. It's well done if you can still kind of evoke that feeling all the way in 2025.
Yeah. And you know what, Sean? This is exactly what helps that scene stand out so much. And I have another one later that's going to be my favorite, but I want to talk about specifically that scene where we have Bella becoming a werewolf and then killing Jenny, and then Larry kills him, because holy shit, the set work, the sound stages, the set design, the fog rolling in to the street when he meets her at 8.
Yeah.
From their meeting all the way up until the next morning, holy shit. This movie, it looks phenomenal. It's so well executed. But even if it doesn't give a semblance of that reality, it still looks so stunning.
It really does. I mean, out of all the monster movies, we have some really great scenes. We have some really great set designs. We have some really great looks when we think of Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory, right? Like, we've got Dracula's castle. We've got all these really great places in Egypt with the mummy and all of that. But you really, to your point, have to give it up for the set design in this film, because the way the woods looked with that perfectly misty fog, giving this almost eerie layer to each shot, I think was absolutely perfect. And the trees that they used in the set design and on the stages were painted black and coated in glycerin to appear damp. So just to think of what went into how this was visually going to look at this time, you got to give it up for them. And one example of what I was talking about with the movies reusing different things across multiple different movies is that opening, in the opening credits shot of the foggy forest, right when the movie starts, that foggy forest was also used in other classic horror films. We saw that in The Ghost of Frankenstein. We saw it in Night Monster. We saw it in The Mummy's Curse. Like, they really took a lot of this, and we've talked in the past about scores and soundtracks being reused across multiple different movies. Even Talbot Castle, at least the inside, was left standing and used in a lot of other movies afterwards, including Ghost of Frankenstein, where it was used as Dr. Frankenstein's house. So I think really cool.
I just want to clarify for the record, you saw those movies. I did not.
Maybe not, but now you know that you can look at the opening credits shot of that foggy forest and you can then try to find that. Maybe it's something you can look for when you do, get around to those movies. And if, at one way or another, we'll get around to them here at some point. Like, with the list will go on, the universe willing, we will get to them at some point.
I was watching a historical retrospective on the Universal Classic Monsters, from Dracula to Frankenstein to Wolfman to Creature from the Black Lagoon. Man, even just hearing about the way some of these characters do or do not return later in the franchise, to hear about the difference in like talent that was being put in Frankenstein's costume and his makeup. Oof. It seemed very hit or miss.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting. And I think it's also interesting just the dynamic of these Universal monster movies and, you know, how much of these monsters were interchanged, especially with the actors, right? Like you really got a little hodgepodge of this kind of almost tight-knit group of actors that were just kind of playing all kinds of different characters. Obviously, you know, when we think of like Dracula and the monster from Frankenstein and all that, like the Mummy and even Creature, we see all of these actors that initially play them and they really set the bar, but then at some point along the way they kind of just flip-flopped around a little bit.
You know what it's like? It's like the cinematic equivalent of getting Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and 98 Degrees to all swap their members.
Imagine.
Yeah, most of the members are the same, but like one lead is different. Give me fucking Nick Lachey instead of Justin Timberlake.
Oh my god, what a weird time that would be.
Yeah, it'd fucking be bizarre.
That's crazy.
What wasn't bizarre though was that werewolf transformation.
So good.
Listen, the amount of time that it took, I believe it was like around 6 hours a day just to get into that makeup. Holy shit. I am so glad we didn't get the complete like reveal of it and it was built up. Like how were they going to pull that off in 1941? But I really loved the gradual reveal of the transformation. I absolutely loved how they focused only on the feet. You can see the changes in the feet. There's progressively more and more hair.
Yeah.
And then later we get the whole body. But I have two things here. Larry's looking really incredulous at his legs. It's growing a lot of hair. And I'm like, bro, I know so many men who would look at their leg and think that's normal for them. Like, that's disgusting.
Yeah, there's some hairy legs out there.
Yeah, it's fucking disgusting. You could make a werewolf movie with any fucking man walking down the street down here. But the other side of this is, why does Larry look better as a wolf than he does as a man?
You know, you're not wrong. He kind of does look better as the Wolfman. I don't want to make too much fun of the dude, but the Wolfman, he even looked a little more fit. You know, he was feeling a little nice, like he was well groomed. You know, he looked pretty well groomed. There was a certain charm to this Wolfman.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice puppy eyes.
He did have the puppy eyes. You got to I don't know. It was nice for sure. It is a great scene, and you got to give it up for what they were able to do with the visual effects for the time and seeing some of that transformation. There's so many good little moments in this movie. Well, let me start with Bela Lugosi, right? Because such a small part. And I think the scene where they meet Bela Lugosi playing the role of a gypsy fortune teller named Bella, so Bella playing Bella, I think is hilarious. I love the dramatic palm reading, the pentagrams we were talking about, and the way the horses react to his transformation into the werewolf, I think was a great touch. And everything about that whole scene, he only got maybe 6 minutes or less of screen time. That few minutes that we got with Bela Lugosi really was just a great part of the movie, and it was super memorable. And I wish we got more, but we didn't, and that's what we got. But one of the better scenes, I think, in the movie.
Oh, 100%. That man steals the show, which is a shame that he got beaten down by Larry Talbot.
I know, so viciously. I do want to talk about that old graveyard scene. It's specifically when they're carrying the coffin to the church or whatever the place was. And I really wish they went with what was originally in the script because, okay, so I had to talk about, now you know, I had to talk about the scene with Bella first because I can't continue this trend of talking about favorite scenes that weren't actually in the movies.
Yep. Thank you so much. You really checked the box there.
Yeah. So I just wanted to be, I have a favorite scene. We'll check that off the list. And now I'm going to talk about what I really wanted to see.
Fan fiction with Sean.
Yeah. So, okay. Originally in the script in that scene, and tell me if this is not fucking incredible and maybe they couldn't pull it off. I don't know why, but okay, so it's not that they are carrying the coffin into the church, but the coffin gets into the fucking church. But originally in the script, from what I read, it would have had Larry Talbot opening this little sliding square for whatever reason, like this almost like tiny little window on the coffin, right? To reveal Bella's dead face looking at him with his eyes wide open, right? But then the camera is actually showing you Larry looking down at Bella. So you're in Bella's point of view, almost showing you that he might still be alive somehow, but it's just like this really cool thing that was originally supposed to happen. It just didn't happen. And I was like, what a great shot that would have been. It would have been so good to end that whole scene that happened, because it was a great scene, but that would have been perfect.
It really would have been. I fucking love it. But
yeah,
you
what
know
happened?
what? Okay. Yeah. See, I'm a hoe for a POV shot. Like, give me another person's perspective. Give me a good frame, especially if you're looking at like a little, like, I'm thinking about those doors where it's like to some underground layer or a bar, and then it's like you just slide it open and ask for the password.
Exactly.
But that's what it feels like. And if we could just get like a shot through that and that rectangular frame against Larry's face looking in, I would love that.
It would be cool. I mean, shit, even if he did, take a little gander and we didn't see anything that was inside at all, and we just saw, just his face, and maybe he had like a horrific expression or something like that, would have been impactful too. I just think there was, there was an idea to have a little bit more in that instance, and I think they maybe should have went with it on that one, and I think it would have been really phenomenal, but who am I?
Okay, I guess my problem, Sean, is that this motherfucker took too many ganders in this movie.
Took a lot of ganders.
In the ganders, he was gandering.
Yeah, I'm guessing one of your least favorite scenes was probably when we were using a space telescope to spy on the girl next door.
Let's roll the tape back. Rear Window is a great movie. When Jimmy Stewart does it, it's fun and hilarious because he's a photographer and he's looking at literally fucking anybody.
Right.
This motherfucker, he spies on a woman dressing. He then goes to her, describes her earrings in great detail, then tells her where she puts them and where she has them, and then tries to be psychic. No, fuck you. That is terrible. So it shows that he didn't just like land on her for a second, went back because she's pretty, then go on about his day. I'm going to try to meet this woman.
Right.
No, he sat there and watched her. He watched where she puts the earrings. He stared hard enough and long enough to know exactly what the spangles, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No, I cannot fucking stand this guy. It is the fucking telescope of it all. It is the fucking stealing a kiss later on. It's the she continues to say no, but he continues to push yes. It fucking drives me crazy. She wasn't giving him a whole lot of yes.
No yeses, really. A whole lot of no's is what he was getting.
Not a yes to be found.
Yeah, he got turned down. He's a very persistent dude, I guess. He didn't want to take no for an answer. But yeah, I am with you in that regard, because I remember him bringing that up and me being like, that just doesn't sound great, man. It sounds super creepy. You're kind of giving yourself up for being a creeper, and maybe that would have been left unsaid, and maybe you could have just tried to make it seem happenstance that you just walked into the shop, but you kind of just dug yourself in a hole on that one.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that this movie frames it as romantic.
They do really try to make it very cutesy in a way. And maybe, to your point, it is a reflection of the times. Mm-hmm. And this probably actually was seen as very cutesy at that time. And nowadays it's feeling a little bit rapey.
Cutesy from who? It's cutesy from men.
That's what I mean. It was a male-dominated time at the 1940s.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, yeah, the ladies will love this. It's so romantic.
Yeah, this sounds great. This is what I like to see.
Get out of here. Because here's the other thing. Oh, okay. I could fucking go on about this guy forever. I simply refuse to believe this motherfucker is pure of heart. You don't spy on women through a telescope if you're pure of heart. You don't go across to their fucking place of business, describe in detail what they were wearing and where they put it, and then say you're psychic if you're pure of heart.
The only thing that made me think that this dude could have been pure of heart in any way was the fact that he was just smiling the entire time from the moment we see him in the car.
He's a himbo.
Just always got this kind of little happy-go-lucky grin on his face, like he couldn't be happier to be wherever the hell he is. You know what I mean?
That's what they call golden retriever energy. That man doesn't have two brain cells fucking rubbing together up there.
Oh my gosh.
That must be why he doesn't know the fucking meaning of no.
Well,
he just continued to pursue her as if she was his.
It's interesting, though, that we also get more Lon Chaney as the Wolfman than we do any other, actor in Universal monster movies, trying to play whatever iconic monster they first depicted, right? So like Lon Chaney kind of struck a nice little streak with the Wolfman.
He really did. And should he have? He did this role really well. What I mean to say is, this is such an early example of, you think the killer's gone, but bam, you didn't double tap, bitch.
I hate to say it, but there is also a little drama surrounding this movie that's not going to paint a great picture for you with Lon Chaney.
Please tell me.
You're already not into the character. You might also not really be into Lon Chaney after this one. It's not that bad. But apparently there was actually beef between Lon Chaney and Evelyn Ankers, who plays Gwen. Apparently Ankers was given her own dressing room or trailer during the movie because of how impressed the director was with her, something like that. And this beef started because Lon Chaney got super upset about it, like super pissed off, because essentially he said that was supposed to be his trailer and she basically took it from him. So he was actually said to have approached her and said that she stole it from not only him, but from Broderick Crawford. It sounds weird, but apparently she later found out that they used to go into the trailer, the two of these dudes, and get super wasted together and then shuffle all the furniture aside and literally beat the crap out of each other. That was their pastime. And so they were upset that they weren't going to be able to do that. And so think about that. Weird drama, weird beef. So it's not like he did anything really bad to her, but the fact that they got so upset that she got a dressing room for regular purposes, whereas they were just I just want to go in there and beat the crap. They could do that in the back alley. You know what I mean? Why do you got to be in the dressing room for that?
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for not letting me waste my breath on this. Listen, was he great as the Wolfman? Yes, but clearly I am uninterested in this man. Wow.
Yeah.
Not beefing with a star and not the director who gave away the trailer. That's what it is for me.
I know. Even Evelyn Ankers' husband apparently got into a fight with Lon Chaney on the set of Son of Dracula during a luncheon over some crap that he was given, because they had this tiff. But the weird thing is, these two didn't like each other, right? Obviously, Evelyn Ankers and Lon Chaney, all this bullshit, all this drama over the course of however long they came across each other. They didn't like each other, but it must have been absolutely terrible because they also did a lot of movies together. It wasn't like they just had a one-off or two films. They did a handful of films together. So it must have been absolute hell for them to constantly be forced to work together.
Yeah, you have that one work nemesis that you fucking hate to see, and then all of a sudden you're working the same fucking hours as them. Terrible.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely terrible.
And I want to just fucking throw this back again. A few B-sides ago when Binks was all like, oh, they're having a great reunion up in heaven because the cast is all dead. And I was like, damn, imagine dying and spending the fucking afterlife with your coworkers. Imagine these two spending their life together as coworkers, their afterlife. Holy
That's so
shit.
True. You can't escape me, even in the afterlife.
Yeah, I bet he's fucking over wherever you believe he is, stealing a trailer from her yet again.
Yeah. I gotta say, Maria, who plays Mileva in this film, was absolutely great. That was a great supporting role, I feel like, because her being the traveling gypsy, whatever, that just had all the lore and was very close to even Bella as the werewolf. I think she added a really great touch to this film. So the role she played as a character, I think cannot go unnoticed either.
100%. She was the foundation upon which this whole thing was built. She gave it some character and she made it interesting. Her and Bella, tag team, loved them.
I know. I wish we got more of the both of them, more Bella, more of her. It was really great. We also had Claude Rains, right, who plays Sir John Talbot in this film, the father, Larry's father. And Claude Rains, very well-renowned actor who actually launched his career with another Universal classic, The Invisible Man.
Sean, I have a bone to pick here.
Yes.
I actually need to look up the years here. I need to see the years between when he was born and when his fucking son was born. Because, and we'll get to worst part in a bit, but I am going to say it now because I'm fucking mad about it. These two men look too close in age to believably be father and son. It's just too much. Larry does not look young.
He doesn't look super young. For whatever age they're trying to depict, he definitely looks like he's in his, like, at least mid-30s, maybe late 30s.
Mid to late 30s is fine, but his dad needs to be older.
Well, no, yes. John Talbot or whatever definitely looks like maybe just chilling in his 50s. You know what I mean? Like, here's one lighter note I think we can talk about. It involves Lon Chaney, obviously, so this will be a lighter note of conversation for Lon Chaney, but I also want to talk about Moose, and Moose is the dog that's played as the werewolf in this movie, because apparently there's this relationship between the two, and I guess they were trying to find the right dog for the role, and Lon Chaney suggested using the police dog named Moose, and they agreed. And I guess during the attack scene, Moose broke a bone in Lon Chaney's hand when he like chomped down on his hand, and like it like seriously injured him. But I guess Lon Chaney, despite all of that, somehow said it was love at first sight and ended up buying the dog later on and keeping it and having a great relationship with this dog.
Okay, you said that this dog broke a bone in his hand, and I thought, good. Keep your hands to yourself, Lon Chaney.
Oh my gosh. But, you know, I just think that's interesting.
That's great.
Yeah, the dog retires from being a police dog and finds a nice home with Lon Chaney and happily ever after, I guess.
Second life as an actor? Absolutely.
Yeah, not bad. You know what I just thought of, though? If Mileva had a silver charm, right, that broke the spell for Larry, she gives him the silver charm. Why didn't she give one to Bella?
You know, privilege.
I also want to know why there was a difference between Bella turning into the werewolf and being full-on wolf, you would say, and Larry turning into the Wolfman and being much more on the man side.
I think it's like puberty. You know, he's just figuring out. He's like a wolf pup.
You think you got to age into it?
You got to fucking level up.
Okay.
You got to tap into some powers. You got to earn your street cred.
All right.
Kind of like the werewolf pack in The Sims.
Okay. I guess these are just things that I think of.
Yeah, you know what I thought of? I thought of the fact that his tracks aren't wolf tracks. And then they showed them and said that they're wolf tracks. But he clearly has big-ass feet. Granted, probably still like the pads under his feet, maybe wolf-like, but they were gigantic. That doesn't make fucking sense at all, guys. Come on.
I always think it's interesting that the original idea for this movie was to make the idea of Larry Talbot turning into the Wolfman up to your imagination. I'm glad that we got the visual effects that we got and we were able to see the transformation and get to see the awesome makeup work and everything to really experience the visual of the Wolfman. Now we have this iconic image of the Wolfman, but originally the plan was to only show the Wolfman one time briefly when Larry sees his reflection in the water, but they decided to go with a more solidified idea that he did indeed turn into a werewolf and not just this kind of psychological play, which I think that was the direction that the remake with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins went in. I think it was more of a on the psychological end of things, even though you got to see a lot of really great visuals. Aside all of that, I feel like the worst part of this movie for me is that they make Bela Lugosi transform into the dog instead of a Wolfman, because I would have liked to see Bella also in Bella's version of a Wolfman. But then I guess, would that take away from the impact of Lon Chaney as the Wolfman? Maybe there was thought process that went into that. I just feel like I didn't want the distinction between the two. So if I'm really going to pick a worst part of this movie, if I really have to, I guess it just didn't sit right with me that they both had different forms. And maybe it's because Bella, to your point, is much older, more established. Who knows?
I agree with you. I would have wanted to see more from Bella. I think he absolutely would have made this movie better. I still think it's wild that he got as much runway as he did with Universal Monsters and finding a way to really poke himself into so many of these movies. But honestly, I just cannot get over the father and son dynamic. Not only the age, because I talked about that, But when Larry returns back, he's like, I know I've been gone a long time. Sorry about John. What the fuck? They seem so properly healed.
It is true. That whole dynamic was weird. You didn't get the feeling like they were rekindling anything or rehashing anything or even that they had any disagreements. That's part of what I'm saying. Larry just strolls into this movie smiling like he's having the time of his life, not going back home to having to deal with a father that he didn't have a great relationship with.
Larry don't give a fuck.
But all of a sudden, they're best buds looking at telescopes together.
Yep. And then one of them is going to beat the other one to death by the end of the movie.
Originally, he wasn't even supposed to be, there wasn't the relationship of father-son. So that's another thing that they changed. Originally, 100% they weren't related, but I think originally Larry's character was supposed to be just someone that was coming to install the lens in the telescope. And so it just kind of went off from there, but I don't know. That would have been interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this movie was filled with a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I think there's so much that we probably couldn't have even gotten to really cover in its entirety tonight. I can't wait to personally see what happens with Wolfman. I remember the terrible, terrible things that were being said about a Wolfman that appeared at Halloween Horror Nights, and then he got bullied out of the whole event. But I absolutely going to be rewatching this movie. I can't believe it's been this long since I rewatched it. I'm going to make sure I do it much more frequently now.
Yeah, you know, the special thing about these movies is that they're not very long, right? Like, you can put on one of these Universal monster movies and it's like 70 minutes, sometimes maybe 75, 80 minutes. Like, they're very quick movies, so you can definitely get through one or two of these pretty easily. And I think this movie definitely has a lot of rewatch value. I think it's one that I find myself watching once or twice a year, almost every year. I like the visual look of this movie. I think, you know, I myself feel like I got a little bit more out of it. I always feel like I end the movie wanting just a little bit more of the Wolfman. And maybe I get into this tiff where I just start looking for Wolfman movies and things like that. To your point, Chris, I'm also with you. I really want to see what they do with this new Wolfman movie. I hope it's good. Don't know what to expect from the trailer. The one trailer that I've seen, it could be hit or miss at this point. So we're going to find out at some point, but I hope that it's good.
Well, I hope it's good too, but at least we both know that the Wolfman from 1941 is good because it's on a Universal slash. Now, listen, we certainly had a robust discussion here, but the conversation doesn't end here about this movie by any means.
Yeah, if you want to join the pack and bark at the moon with us, consider supporting the show. You can visit patreon.com/hackerslash, where you can enjoy even more of the show, including bonus content with early access, extended episodes with our B-sides, movie nominations, and live shows. Also, if you've enjoyed wallowing in the blooms of the Wolfsbane under a bright autumn moon with us, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. That helps us continue to deliver great content for all you horror fiends out there.
We'll see you next time, folks, and remember, most anything can happen to a man in his own mind.
As if dead men didn't have all eternity.